playing and being a part of a huge alpha male world, that was definitely not something you spoke about.
Hey guys, it's Julia here. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. And if you're a regular listener, welcome back. 3 quick things from me before we get into the episode. I'm really excited to share this conversation with you. There's just a couple of things I have to warn you of. I'm back in Melbourne, visiting from London, recording these conversations. So it was great to sit down with Lance in person last week. It is an intense conversation and there's some gesticulation going on, including hitting the table, and I annoyingly put the microphone in a spot where it picks that sound up. So if you hear that sound throughout the podcast, that's what it is, and I'm hoping that by telling you that that's what the sound is, it makes it less disruptive to your listening. I really hope it doesn't get in the way of you hearing the conversation, because I think it's really important. And on that note, I want to warn you that we are talking about substance abuse and suicide, so please be mindful of that before continuing to listen. And last thing, thanks again for your support with this podcast, especially for sharing the conversations with people after you listen. That is the biggest way that the podcast grows. So please continue doing that if you found this conversation helpful, and especially if you know someone who's struggling who might benefit from listening to it. You can also feel free to review it if you want, and if you don't want to miss future episodes, then whichever podcast app you're listening to, there should be some kind of follow or subscribe button. I think that helps the podcast grow as well. So thanks again, and on to the episode. Okay, yeah, because how this came about was my friend heard you speak at Old Scotch Footy Club.
Yeah.
And he said something that stuck with me that I don't even know if it's something you said, but it's been helping me.
What is it?
So much, which is something like that depression, feel like having experienced all this, feeling suicidal and whatever, it is something that you just constantly manage, even after getting out of like the really dark time, but every day it's like taking your medicine, that you do these things in the morning. Okay, so it's true. Yeah, so I've been thinking that because I've had a rough couple of weeks, and I'm like, okay, Delia, this is your medicine. Go for a walk outside, meditate, take omega-3, like whatever it is. Like have a green juice, because this is part of your medicine and this is what you have to do.
Yeah. So you're are we going? Or you?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I think it's more about the talking that it's you give yourself the opportunity of the framework, right? So your self-care process, and no matter where you're at on the continuum, whether you're flourishing or whether you're languishing or whether you're right in the middle and just going through different challenges. You talk about people play the victim in this world because they don't give themselves the opportunity to be better. Right, so and that's how I look at it, and that's how I see it, and that's how I feel it, and that's how I act it, and understanding that fact that from you give yourself every opportunity from when you wake up, and if that's 4 o'clock in the morning, which I do, go do my meditation, go to the gym, it's walk or whatever it might be. That starts off my day, my knowing that I've actually given myself opportunity to have a good day because I've done that. Well, I have those days where I don't do that, but that's perfectly fine. Because I need to read my body and I need to read my mind and I need to be able to be adapting to the fact that I might be a bit tired for that day, but I'll still do something that's going to help. So what are the pieces that I'm putting together for that framework of my self-care to make sure that I give myself that opportunity to have a better day? And everyone's different in what works for them. Me, exercise is a big thing. It's a huge thing. It's been a big thing for my life forever. But also slowing down and taking some me time and chilling and, listening to, audio books, because I'm not really a reader sort of thing, or audio books, or just listening to my songs, or just, just generally playing with my kids. I've got, nearly 5-year-old and 7-year-old boys, being, just playing in the backyard, having a kick of the footy or whatever it might be. They're parts to my self-care. When you talk about the people that live with mental illness and the fact of they're languishing on their mental health continuum on their journey, we keep talking about is the fact that they don't give themselves those opportunities to say, okay, what could be better? What could I do better? Or I'm just going to rely on somebody else to do that for me. So how's that working? And you don't cure your system by just going, okay, I'll go for a walk and tomorrow I don't have a level of mental health diagnosis. The fact is the consistency in your actions over a period of time, and that's why they call it behavioural therapy, right? It's not outcome therapy, it's behavioural therapy. So what is the things that I'm doing for myself to make it work for me? And as I said, exercise is a big thing for me. Spending time with my kids is a big thing. Spending time with my wife's a big thing. Not drinking alcohol is a big thing for me. And I get judged for that. There's judgment that comes out, and then this is what we sort of face in everyday society: is that you get judgment over your decisions for your own health. But I'm a bit of a FU to a lot of people, because that's what works for me. You don't like it, bad luck. And that's what works for me, and it's what works for my family. So if I can do that, and I can give myself those opportunities every day, open it up.
Do you ever wake up and there's that voice that's like, no, you don't deserve this, or it's like that self-sabotaging thing?
Not on the wake up. There's experiences that go through like everybody else, right? We have all different stresses from different domains of our life. Professionally is in the work sort of life, there's a lot of moments that happen that you go, oh, maybe I don't deserve this, or don't deserve to be able to. And that's just your life, and that's your brain. That's sort of how it works. But having those tools to understand, okay, when those moments come in play, that they're just moments, they're just thoughts, but don't be controlled by your thoughts. Allow your actions to bring you back. My steps in play of what I do for work, what I do for myself, what I do for my family, will put me in a good position moving forward. And I'm so reliant in terms of my judgment, my self-judgment. We talk about self-sabotage, it's self-judgment, right? So in terms of how that works, if I'm so reliant on the outcome, then I've already lost. If I put my behaviours in play, then I'm in a better position. I'm not always going to win. That's not how it works. But I'm in a better position to be better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it's life.
Okay, so can we go back to the start?
Ooh.
First question on this podcast is always, how did you grow up? That's more just to give the sense of the culture you grew up in.
Yeah.
And then we'll get into your story.
Yeah, cool. So how did I grow up? I grew up good. I had a solid life. Family, like most, not everyone. I get understanding and more experience in life. You see, different dynamics in families and how they don't work and how they do work. My dad was he was a former Socceroo, played soccer for Australia, so he was at a high level for sport. My mum is an absolute champion and a beautiful person that is just an absolute lion. Typical lion sort of matriarch of her family in terms of the protector and how she worked and how she operated through both professionally and personally. And I had an older brother and an older sister, and the life of us was all about sport. I started playing basketball when I was 4 years of age. Most kids have got 3 left feet at 4 years of age. So, but I was playing, I was developed, I was ready to go, and sport became my life and our family's life, and that's how it rocked. And that was our escape, and that was our thing that made sure that we were all good. We had challenges, like a lot of people and a lot of families do. There were some financial issues going on. We went through recessions, going through all the things that happened. But my parents always worked their bums off to give us, my brother and my sister and I, the opportunities of life. Whatever opportunities they were, it was not about going on fancy holidays or those sorts of things. It was all about opportunity to play sport and be connected to a community, and that was what our life was about. My life really took a bit of a challenging experience through school. I wasn't. When I say I wasn't an academic, I was actually quite smart, but I wasn't. I didn't like school. A lot of people they don't like school, but my the experience that I had through primary school, not fitting in, not being really connected to what should be the happiest times of your life in primary school, right?
And why did you feel like that was?
I was bored. I think I was bored with school, bored with it. I was always getting in trouble, always sort of, as I said, my mum explains it this way, that I should have actually been up a grade. I was never challenged through primary school, as challenging as primary school can be. I was never challenged, so I would always finish my work, 20, 30 minutes before everybody else, and then I'd get bored and go, what am I going to do here? So I start trouble. You start trouble like that with kids at that age, they don't like that, right? And like nobody does. But I didn't know that's what I was doing. So not fitting in, and quite, because I was physical, like I've always been a big fella. So my life was, was quite physical, and that sort of didn't sort of sit well there. Then I went to a new high school. I went to high school. Similar things were happening, and it was just, and then I, sort of wasn't fitting in. Started getting bullied, disconnected, sort of away from everybody, and not being able to play simple things.
What was the bullying like?
Never physical, as I said. I could punch on with 10 people and not be an issue. That's just how I am. That's just my physical nature in life. It's always been. But just when I talk about this bullying is around the social harassment, the disconnection. You can't be a part of this. I had no friends through a lot of school.
It's interesting because the stereotype is like if you're really good at sport, especially in Australia, if you're like really good at sport, really good at footy, it's like you're the popular one.
Yeah, and that became the case, right? But like year 7, year 8, year 9, that's not really the thing, right? So it's about when it's sort of like later on in school, it was, I was making state squads and being captains and all this sort of stuff of, winning Australian awards and all that sort of stuff for footy and athletics and whatnot. It became, okay, well, let's be around him. Which is an interesting way to look at it and feel it and relive it and understand it. There's still issues that I'm facing today from that, that I'm still working through. Right?
So do you think that was part of your motivation, was like, okay, if I can be the best, then I'll win people's approval?
Nah, never my motivation to win people's approval. My motivation to be the best was just because I wanted to be the best. Then I had an opportunity to be the best. And through junior footy, through junior athletics, basketball, the whole thing, I loved what I did, and I loved playing. I loved playing sport, and I loved winning, and that was my thing. Like if I wasn't winning, it was the worst thing in the world.
So was that like an escape?
Footy sport was an escape. I think sport for everyone is an escape. Whoever does it, no matter what your sport is or what exercise you do, I think that's where your escape comes. And then the problem is that when you and your escape becomes not your escape, your performance doesn't keep working for you. Your relationship with it. So we talk about the relationships with things, whether it be exercise, sport, whether it be work, whether it be family. If you have a poor relationship with it, with your association with it, and the outcomes and behaviours that are associated with it, then you don't like doing it. And this is where the performance sort of outplays it. So even from socially, if you don't like somebody, you're not going to. Usually it's an escape. Social connection's a big thing for a lot of people. It's an escape. It's a part of being something. But even not liking the relationship that you got there, and then you talk about sort of relationships with partners or family, and you start becoming abusive and all this stuff happens. It's not a good way to be. But there's always a reason why you actually got to that in the first place. So sometimes, the things that aren't in your control, so other people's actions and how they're going about things, the outcomes that come from that is something that you've just got to understand. And how do you work through that? How do you go, okay, well, this is my life and this is the big part of self-awareness that people always forget. How's it making me feel? Am I enjoying what I'm doing right here? Am I enjoying this person? Am I enjoying this experience? If I don't, well, what am I going to do about it? How am I going to change that? Do I need to say something? Do I need to just change how I approach things? Do I, the actions from other people, you actually also don't know what they're going through. So their behaviours towards you, nothing to do with you, but it's something that's going on back here that goes, okay, well, this is not the way it's going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So did your relationship with sport ever change?
Yeah, it did. So when I played AFL, it was like that. My first, I got drafted to Adelaide when I was 17. So I went to Adelaide, straight out of school, and it was an interesting experience. And I enjoyed the fact of being on an AFL list, and I enjoyed it probably too much. And then when I say didn't enjoy it, I enjoyed it too much. I enjoyed what the association off field was all about, right? And then I wasn't performing.
Like what?
partying and drinking and all the adulation and all that sort of stuff from people around. And you go to Adelaide, it's a two-team town, and that's the only thing that's going on in Adelaide is footy, right? So all the sort of the building of the ego was pretty high, and I didn't cope with that. Didn't cope with that at all. And just sort of found my way into partying and alcohol and not doing what I was supposed to be doing, and that was playing footy and performing on the field.
So was that a big part of the team culture, or how did you
that was life's culture at the time, right? So like still even today, right? So people are more health conscious today, more worldly about their understandings around it, but there's still, whether it's sport or a business, the Australian culture around alcohol is a big thing, and do what you do and your choices in how you go about it. But that's, I look at it back, it wasn't my way of doing things when I was growing up. Our family wasn't involved around alcohol, but then I was opening up to it, and I was like, oh, look at this thing. This is a shiny new toy, and we'll see what happens here.
Were you still living at home at that point?
No, I was in Adelaide. So I grew up here in Melbourne, and then I moved to Adelaide, which was I had a beautiful. I billeted with a family, and it was great, and they were beautiful people and really supportive and all that sort of stuff. But I just didn't connect the idea of actually being on an AFL list to play AFL, which is a sad thought.
And, okay. So was the family aware of you, like, oh, why are you going out all the time? Or
yeah, they're aware. But what are they going to do? You know what I mean? Like it was. What are they going to do? Like it was my choices that I was making. So they couldn't put boundaries on me and all these sorts of things. They were just there to support me to actually to live. And then, then politics comes into play with professional sports, or even, I said the same thing for business, and it totally disconnected from what I was supposed to be doing, which was performing on the field. But then I was having run-ins with, coaching staff and general managers and all that sort of stuff, and just wasn't put into a position to give myself those opportunities to play.
So they tried to pull you up on.
No, they didn't. They didn't do that either. They just, that was life. That was just how it worked. So, because there was other players that were all in the same boat, were all doing it, but they were able to perform. They were a bit more experienced in life, and they were doing their thing that they needed to do.
And so no one really took you under their wing to say, like, don't go out till 5 a.m. before training, or
yeah.
It was just like, figure it out yourself.
I'll be there with you. Right.
But they
were more experienced. They were grown up. They were probably mature. But I didn't look at it as a kind of, well, who can I do this with? It was more the fact that, well, this is making me feel good, because footy wasn't making me feel good. So that's my world that I was getting into.
And feeling good was like the escape of drinking and drugs. Or was
no drugs at that time. So drugs came later. More alcohol, and as I said, the chasing the dragon of seeking attention, probably coming with that.
To be like, I play for Adelaide.
Yep.
Give me a round of drinks.
Yeah, a round of drinks. Do what you need to do. Get the fans. Get all the sort of stuff that's coming with it. It's not. Looking back on it, it's pretty sad way to experience it or try to seek that experience. But as a 17, 18-year-old, that was hadn't been open to sort of worldly experiences like that before. I was like, let's do this. And
of course, like because I went to college here near the Turf Club, and it would always be Mad Mondays. Footballers would go there. So we, as 18-year-olds, we've got to go and meet these and it was a footballer bought me a drink. It is that. And half the time it's is he actually a footballer? Could be any random bloke trying to.
Yeah.
So it really is that culture, and especially in Adelaide, when that's the sport.
It's 25 years ago when I'm talking about, right? So we've come a long way in life and society, and the ways, as I said, we're more worldly nowadays, and people are more health conscious and understandings that go about things. But alcohol is a socially acceptable drug, I'm saying, right? So it is. So people get into it, and it's not your relationship with alcohol that's the problem. It's a relationship why you are seeking alcohol to be your experience. I think that's where people are falling down. Get into it and you have one drink too many. The choices that come from drinking and doing these sorts of things becomes an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well,
okay, so then
I came back to. I left. I had enough, so I left Adelaide. I was performing. I started performing. So I was playing at Glenelg in the AFL, like the reserves, and I was doing all right. Offered me a contract. Said, "Nah, send me home. Get me back to Melbourne." So I got traded to Hawthorn. So I was at Hawthorn for 5 years, which got back to the swing of things of life and being around my family, being around my needs. And life was good. I stopped drinking. I stopped seeking all the crap that was going with it. And then it sort of was on an upwards, an upward sort of steps, and we're going all right, playing, and then just there's no one trigger, but there was a series of relationship issues, girlfriends and all that sort of stuff. But I wasn't performing as much on the field, so I was I got dropped a couple of times. Then I started going, I lost my grandpa, my gramps, I lost him, and that really set me off. And then alcohol and just became back into my life. I was just like, wow, let's do this again. And we talk about mental health and your journey with it. Is the fact that this type of conversation around your mental health wasn't a conversation that we had 20 years ago. So there was no awareness around it. It was a thing, but it was more the people's understanding of, well, you had to be crazy to, in terms of, you had to be really at the upper echelon of your mental illness to actually think that this was an issue. So not just in terms of the challenges that come with, and this is where the problems we get in our society is the fact that people automatically think a day or a week of actually being sad or being levels of mental health challenges automatically puts you into needing psychiatric help or medication for the challenges that you're going through. People jump from hero to zero really quickly, and that's a problem that we're having in society now. Then people are facing the fact of they're seeking that support from the higher end, so crisis management process in hospitals and psychs and all sorts of stuff, with the fact that they're just dealing with some stuff that they just should be able to deal with within their crew, within their loved ones, within their people, within themselves. But people don't want to do that. They want to go straight there, and that's the fact that the awareness component comes in. 20 years ago, it wasn't there. So my challenges weren't enough to talk about.
So you weren't talking to anyone?
Didn't talk to anybody about it. It was not a thing. It was just like, okay, well, and playing and being a part of a huge alpha male world, that was definitely not something you spoke about. If you couldn't cope with the life that you were living, then you wouldn't be in that life. You would see later that's how they'd go. But then, working through that, and then, but I was still playing and, still doing certain things, but I just off-field and off-field, away from the footy club and internally, inside my head, it was just an absolute nightmare.
So leaving Adelaide, you kind of said to yourself, like, I want to take this seriously, get back into footy, stop drinking, or go to Hawthorn, new start.
Yep.
And then...
It was going all right. It was. Literally, it was all right. So it was, I was just feeling safe again, which is a big thing. We talk about safety in life, feeling safe again, but, sort of psychologically, emotionally, I was feeling safer again. So I was actually to make the right choices for me. I talked before about the fact of the better managing your system. I brought my system back, what I was doing for myself and how I was going about it and who I was doing that with. So my system was better. And then the system becomes a little bit breaky over time, and as opposed to realising why it's becoming breaky and taking some responsibility and being accountable to that you just keeps breaking a bit more.
Yeah.
And if you keep doing the same crap, and those behaviours are still associated with it, it breaks more and more and more, and it becomes broken.
Yeah.
And it's a hard way to find yourself to come back from that when it's broken. So when you find it's a challenge or you're finding it breaking, you can understand where you're going. But people, we wait for things to be broken before we try and fix them.
So that was kind of driven by you started feeling like a failure, or?
Yeah, huge failure. Like I should have been much more than I was when I was at that stage of my career. And, then the guilt comes with it, and then you're like, okay, well, how am I going to feel better about myself and doing these sorts of things? And then you start doing the things that make you feel better in the instant. And a lot of that is either through alcohol or through drugs or through, promiscuous behaviours or whatever it might be that's in your life. And that's how you seek it. That's how you seek the sort of internal gratification of who you are and how you're going about it. And that was not the right choices for me.
And were you feeling depressed at that point that you started getting back into drinking, and did it kind of follow up?
So it's a bit of a chicken or the egg, right? So why was I doing it to get to sort of thing? So it's understanding is coming back. So, in terms of the levels, there's levels of depression, right? And people that know this, and we're talking about the continuum that it's on. So people always have a level of depression in them because there's sadness that comes with that, right? So in the emotional state or the lack of self-worth that comes with that, but that becomes worse and worse and worse, depending what level you're at. My level of depression at the time, I believe, was hugely challenged in terms of my emotional state because I just didn't feel worth. I'd had no worth in who I was. So I seeked worth from things that weren't worthwhile, right? So whether that's through relationships, people socially, through alcohol, through fighting, through whatever it was, I seeked it for the wrong reasons. So my relationship with it was poor. Then in terms of depression was the fact that if I don't show anybody that because I look, I look invincible in terms of physical capacity, in terms of how that goes about it, but no one's invincible in your emotional state. No one is, right? No matter, even Dalai Lama's not emotional, invincible. Maybe him, but that's about it. But in terms of not invincible but I couldn't let that to be seen because that's not who I was seen to be, right? So people knew me as the tough guy, the party guy, the guy that nothing could break. And that's what I thought. Speak to other people might be different, but that's what I thought. So I had to keep putting this front on that I've got this. I'm not breaking. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm going to get this, and it's going to happen. But then you're sort of, away from people, the thoughts that come with having no worth, no self-worth, are dark. They're hugely dark. And it's really hard to see unless you talk about it at the time, which is a really hard thing to do. And I'm not saying this to people. It's the fact that we talk about this all the time. Is the fact that we say talk about these things, but it's an unbelievably challenging thing to do.
Yeah,
it is it is so, especially when you're in an absolute midst, like in the middle of that sort of darkness, and you're right there at the bottom of the sort of well, and you can't see light at the top, and the conversation is a really hard thing to do. And who do you going to have that conversation with? Because that first conversation, if that's not taken seriously from somebody else, because they're scared of saying certain things, and there's judgment that comes with that, then you don't talk more. So your experience of going, okay, well, when I was feeling like this, and I talked about it, it didn't make me feel better. So when it happens next time, why would I talk to somebody again?
So did that happen to you? You tried to
Well, cries for help, right? So, and how people hear those cries for help is different. So there's moments where I talk to people at footy. Obviously my parents could see it, but it was not really a sort of thing that we spoke about at home. But as I said, in the footy world, it was like, okay, well, now you're good. Let's go develop, go train, and you'll be right. It'll all happen. It'll all work out. And it didn't.
So what would a standard week look like in that period when you were playing for Hawthorn but you'd started getting into drinking again?
What would it look like? So, we were in a stage there where it was sort of becoming professional. It wasn't professional at the time, it wasn't full-time. It was still, you were at the club most days, but there for a few hours as opposed to what it looks like now, where you might be there for 4 to 6 to 8 hours a day, right?
So people might have had other jobs and whatever.
Yeah, people might have other interests or doing their education or whatever it might be, but we just weren't being there. So between training, I would go, and then I would go back to boys' house or my mate's house that weren't attached to footy, and just hang out and do nothing. And That was how it was. But then sort of at that stage, it was, as soon as game time was finished, it was straight on it, and drink to your stupor.
Whether you won or lost.
Won, lost, draw, whatever it was, didn't play, injured, whatever it was, and it was just, let's go, and then I'll see you Monday.
Okay, and you could kind of have it under the guise of like, we won, like we're celebrating, everyone's drinking.
No. That was the way that people lived, right? Not a lot of them did it, but a lot of them did. That makes sense.
And it was like some of the boys are partiers and some aren't, and that's fine.
Yeah, that's
it's
how it
not
works.
a problem either way.
Yeah.
And then would you realise like, or was it again like there were other people taking it really far?
Depends on the level. Depends on what you think is too far, right? so everyone has a different interpretation of what that level is, and then where you're at and why you're going. So it's better, as opposed to some people like it, have a few drinks and do their thing and be home by 1 o'clock, whereas I like to be home by like 7 the next morning. That was how it was.
And did you ever look around like no one else is here and why am I still going at 6 a.m? Or you could brush it off as like, yeah, it's part of the culture.
Just, it was a part of my internal culture, not their culture. And it was the thing, you become so internalised with your thoughts and your process that you don't really look at anybody else. This is the life that I'm living, and that's just how I'm going to rock it, good, bad, or indifferent. And it becomes doing it consistently. You think, okay, this is just the norm. And that's what I felt. So instead of telling yourself the lie of that this is okay and this is how it goes, I say this all the time, is you tell a lie often enough, it becomes your truth, right? And this is where people live with the fact of not taking accountability or being responsible to their actions, and their behaviours. The fact that you tell a lie often enough, the consistency in that behaviour becomes your norm.
And no one intervened. Because maybe I'm naive, but I'm imagining now, if you were on the list and you were doing that someone would step in and be like, you need your sleep.
Now.
Like you need to be eating properly.
Yeah, now. But as I said, we're talking 20 years ago. So life's understanding is totally different. It's, there's, in terms of out of football club or a professional sports, whatever sport you're playing, even at work, there's more resource, more understanding, the more support around people in life now than there was 20 years ago. And I'm not saying anything people don't know. Even 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, we've still got a long way to go in terms of actually we've got support around people, but it's actually having that sort of culture around those people to understand that they are being supported, but you've got to be able to support yourself. Okay, we live in a life now that people don't want to support themselves. They want to, as I said before, around the victim mentality. People want to play this victim mentality and want to have everyone else to fix them. It's not going to work because they got their own crap to deal with, right? So let's put a culture around it. Want to, how to have a conversation. We talked a little bit before about the fact of conversations now is people have forgotten the art of conversation because of technology. We love technology and we love how it works, but it's taken away our ability to actually emotionally connect into a relationship, into a connection of what we need. So people are afraid to say the wrong thing. They can't deal with conflict. They don't understand a risky conversation. They don't understand what a safe conversation looks like. They don't understand how to fill each other's cup up, in terms of genuinely filling each other's cup up, as opposed to the bullshit that comes with life that we see now through social media and all the things that happen with it, right? So, people are really sort of happy to sit on a keyboard or on their phone and write comments and you're so inspirational, all this sort of stuff and blah, blah, blah. That's not generally filling someone else's cup up, because it's almost like a copy and paste and you've written it on 150 people and it's not what it is, right? So this is the world that we're living in. The fact that technology is taking away our capacity to have genuine human connection, which is causing a lot of issues for people's mental health. We talk about their journey, what does that look like, and then when I talked about it before, my ability to have that conversation that first time I'm feeling in my dark moments, if that is not a good experience, I'm never going to talk again. And that's what people get to, and they wait till they're absolutely broken and actually forced to have that conversation from somebody else. But then there's also the other people that don't want to have that conversation with somebody that is broken in their life because they're afraid of what will happen. They're afraid to have that conversation with that person.
Yeah, I guess it's really hard to talk about this stuff. And I still now, and this is why I just want to be way more honest about it, which is what I was telling you at the start of this, because now you kind of it's like, a journey, as we say. And so some days it's not like you're cured automatically. And then some days when you've been going well and people are like, oh, great, we're so happy, they don't seem to be depressed anymore, they're working and they're functioning, they're getting out of bed. Then when you're like, wait, I'm feeling fucking terrible again. And it's like, how do I say that? Because it's like you don't want to let people down. And then I found all this talk about mental health, can make it even harder because everyone's talking about it like it's almost like a trendy thing, but it's like, hang on, but are you like, I am struggling, like I don't feel like I want to live anymore, like how do I no one's saying that, like who can I it's not like a sexy thing, as you were saying.
It's into the people are attached to it. So we'll talk about the mental health sector in terms of conversations of people having, or advocacy, or the campaigning, or the messaging they're trying to push around it. It's a bit of a clickbait thing, right? So I'm seen as a good person who I'm going to start talking about these things, but it becomes an expectation on the other side for those people that are dealing with the challenges that come with it. And we're all dealing with it, just on different levels. So there's expectations that, okay, well, we talk about I talk a lot about the honeymoon period. People are experiencing certain things, and then automatically you see from, or not yourself, because beautiful people, we'll say somebody sees from the outside that person is maybe feeling better. And they think, okay, they're okay. I don't need to have the conversation with them anymore. But it's not about the conversation, it's about the relationship, the behaviours and the experiences that come following. And it's not, and I say this a lot of the time, is about the fact that you don't cure yourself from a mental illness or a mental health diagnosis. You better manage your system to move forward with. So I still say to this day that I live with depression and anxiety and substance abuse. I live with it. That is my system. But we've all got a part of that breaking part in our system that we need to better manage that system to make it work for you. The conversations that we're having, there's so much pressure in our life to actually feel bloody on top of the world, right? And happy, and I'm all over it. And if you're seen to not be at that stage, it becomes actually worse. So instead of, people dropping, so we talk about that. I keep mentioning this continuum, right? The mental health continuum. 0, languishing, severe crisis. That's the real challenge, huge. And then you work your way through to flourishing, on top of the world, doing cartwheels down the street. That's 10, right? Instead of people always go, okay, how do I get to a 10? But 10's not achievable. 10 is literally, in today's day and age, and how we go about things, 10 in terms of society's expectations of what a 10 looks like is not achievable. It might be achievable for a moment, for an experience, for a part, but it's not. It's from day to day, consistency in activity and behaviours. It's not achievable. So what's my base camp? And if I can keep my range, and I don't have a base camp of 8, my base camp is between a 6 and an 8. That for me is what do I need to do to get to that and understand what that looks like. There's going to be experiences that come through and go, I'm going to have my moments where I'm going to drop back to a 3 or a 4, 100%. But if I have my framework with what I start my day with, how my actions and my behaviours look like, I can actually bring myself back into that range as quickly as I possibly can. So there's no pressure on me to be there, but I understand what I need to do to get there. So, but people go, okay, well, instead of dropping back, a couple of scores sort of thing, and then getting myself back to that level, people drop and they keep dropping and they keep dropping, and as opposed to because of society's pressures and expectations to you to be better, because I actually don't want to deal with your crap, because it makes me feel bad. I'm worried about the fact that me having a conversation with you're going to bring me down. You're going to make me anxious. You're going to make me feel, have depression. I'll make you have depression. The difference between having depression and being depressed is people forget. Depression is, we're talking about clinical mental illness, clinical diagnosis, mental health diagnosis. Being depressed is feeling the absolute the worst of sadness that comes through with worth and coming through that period of time, for that moment, from that experience. Not having a depression where actually, or whatever level that is, that it is for a long period of time, not just for a day. Yeah, but this is this is why we have these types of conversations here, and it's just hopefully it opens people's eyes up and ears up and their hearts up to these understandings, and that we're all going through it. It's every single day. Like even this year, from last year, not this year. This year's been great because it's only a couple of weeks old. The last year was a hugely challenging one for me personally and professionally. So much to the point where my worth, instead of being in my base camp, even though I was doing all my right things, I was right back in 3 or 4 for an extended period of time. So I went back and sought help. My wife had read that in me and how I was going about it, and had that conversation with me, because we openly talk about our things all the time, and I'm very lucky to have my wife in my life to be able to do that. And we went for a walk one day, and she said, "Well, what do you want to do with it?" Exactly what she said to me the day after my last suicide attempt in 2011. What do you want to do with it? And that's putting that accountability back on me. What do I want to do with that? And that was, maybe I need to go see someone again. So 10 years after my last psych appointment, I went back and saw a psychologist who, Dr. Carey is an amazing person in my life, and has been for a period of time, just as friends. But I'm very lucky that, obviously, from the work that I do, I had that relationship with her, and we worked it through, and it was a long series of conversations. We'll say, I like this word, and I'm in a much better place than I was 3 months ago. Let's just say that.
And are you able to not be hard on yourself, like, I'm running this mental health charity, I should be in perfect mental health?
It's huge expectation on that, and it is. We're coming up to our 10th anniversary, 10th birthday, we're going to call it next month. In terms of being from when we were founded as an organisation, there's huge pressures I feel socially to be out, but. I think the biggest part of why I am still been in this sector for 10 years, which a lot of people sort of have come and go on that journey, right? Is the fact that I'm still understanding that I'm who I seek that pressure and expectation from. That comes from externally, huge, and it's all around. But the way I go about things is I'm pretty open to being vulnerable. And I'm pretty open to being real in my conversations. I'm pretty open to who I do that with. And I'm not a huge social media person where I put my feelings and all these things out there. I don't see it. That's what I need to do. I have my people in my life that I have these conversations with. I have my mentors in my life that allow me to process both personally. I have an emotional coach. I have a business coach. I have all these people in my life, these mentors that work through, and I have those conversations for different reasons. But my life coach is my wife, and that's my mum's a huge part of that as well. It's being able to have those conversations with those people to understand, okay, this is who am I doing my life for, and then I'm doing my life for me, and my life is for my family. That's what's the most important thing. Yeah, that's
so helpful as well that she does put the accountability to you, and not in a way, because I find that people around me can get quite panicked if I'm feeling like this again. Yeah, some people are great, and it's okay, it's your choice. What do you want to do?
Yep.
Why don't you do these things that help you? But other people can be like, oh my God, okay, I think you need to go on medication. You've got to do this, because it's a panicked, I can't deal with it. But it's
straight out of a movie, that one. Yeah.
But it's no, I actually just need to talk to you, being someone I love and who cares about me, and for you to just for it to be okay that I'm feeling like this.
People go into problem solving mode really quickly. Right? I want to fix you. There's something here. I'm going to fix you. What do I need to do to fix you? But we're not here to fix you. Even your friends or your family that you're having these conversations with, they're not there to fix you. We're going to get out of this mode or this idea, the fact that we're here to fix people, is that people need to be able to understand how they fix themselves, right? So in the conversation, and the greatest question, and my wife said it to me in 2 huge times in my life over this period, and always says it, is, well, what do you want to do? And I said that to you when you're having maybe a moment or a time, and you're like, oh, I don't know, and then you're like, oh, think about it. Let's talk about it. Conversation, bring it back. Don't just go. And we seek instant gratification from that process for a lot of people. Is the fact that if I can do something really like, I'm going to fix you right now. Geez, I'm going to feel good about who I am, right? But I'm not here to fix you. I'm not seeking gratification to fix you, to make you feel better. I'm just understanding that you need to feel better. So what are we going to do with that to make it, you put yourself at that, I'm talking about before, the opportunity to do that. Talk about self-care, right? So, whatever it might be. What is your thing that you do? What do you think? Is there a one thing? Is there a 5 things? Or what does it look like for you?
I think listening to podcasts like this, I think that's why I make this podcast, because I'm like, this is what helps me. Yeah, I was just talking about Tyson Fury. It's like listening, and audiobooks as well, like going for a walk and listening to other humans, and you're like, fuck, we're all just kind of these fucked up people who are trying to figure stuff out. Yeah. And it's like so refreshing. But to get myself to do, that's the hard thing, right? Because it's like, you get stuck when in your thoughts, and it's like you can't like get up and leave. It's so simple being like going for a walk, and then it pisses you off when someone's like, oh, why don't you go for a walk? And it's like, yes!
I think that's the challenging part where we look at, right? I'm not talking about the consistency in your behaviours, is that there's a difference between self-care difference between self-care and positive triggers, right? So self-care is our consistency in our behaviours and our framework that we do every single day. What are those sorts of things? My positive triggers are, what is the thing that I know I need to go to when I'm having those moments? An audio book or a podcast session, or it might be just a simple song. So I'm talking about something that you need to be able to do in like 1 to 3 minutes that can get you to that point. Whether it be a breathing practice, do I need to step back? Do I need to take my shoes off and go walk in the grass? What a grounding exercise that I may need to do, and not just think about them. Actually, for people, and it's a tool that I have, and a lot of people do now, is actually have my positive triggers written down and accessible. What are the things that I need to do? What are the things that could snap me back in? What are the things that I need to trigger myself to move forward?
So what's an example of that for you?
For me, sit back, like a breathe practice. Like I just whether it's where I am, whether I'm driving or I'm at the thing, it might be a thing actually just sitting back from wherever I am, or standing in a place that's a little bit away from that experience. Close my eyes and bring my breath back. That is the simplest thing that anybody can possibly do to look at what that works. Another one that I usually use, and I don't have it on today, but my wedding ring is I've got chubby fingers, so I don't really wear my wedding ring a lot because it hurts, right? So, but my wedding ring is I'm feeling those moments of anxious, I actually just touch and it's like a little fidget thing, right? So I look at it. That's the thing that I do, and it makes me feel calm, because that's my trust, that's my connection, that's my life. Or a thing, just all right, get away from that, go grab my kids. What do we got? What are we doing here? And being with them is another positive trigger. So whatever your positive trigger looks like, and music's an accessible thing for any positive trigger, and depending on what relationship with that or what song that is. And we were very lucky last year. We did a bit of a collaboration with Andrew Loadsman and Matt Charles, and we produced a song for the foundation, a call to the brokenhearted. And for me, I play that song a lot, and whether that creates a positive trigger, because the wording that comes through that, the messaging that comes out of that song is amazing. So so for a lot of people, my son loves it as well. He's 7, and he goes, "Oh, I'll play the song, Dad." And it's like, oh, let's do this. So it makes me feel good. Yeah.
And so in the moment, you're able to like quickly be like, come on, use the positive trigger. Let's get you out of this.
That's the self-awareness component, right? So how do you, to be able to recognise that in the moment, for a lot of people it's hard because they haven't invested in
meditating.
Well, as mentioned, meditation is not for everyone, right? So investing in just the presence of your experience, right? So, this is the thing. So it's about actually going, okay, in this moment, being in this moment. A lot of people are already thinking, what am I doing in the next hour? Not actually being here in this experience. And this we talked about with technology. It's actually seeking us to be further advanced than we actually are because time is here. So how do I have this conversation here? How do I experience this here? How am I feeling this? Am I feeling my heart racing a bit more? Am I feeling a sweat that's coming, or am I feeling a little bit perspired, or am I breathing? Is my breathing getting a bit shorter? Is my posture all slouched and all over the place? And being aware of those things is huge. A lot of people find themselves to be too busy to be aware of themselves. So if I'm actually seeking to be too busy, then I'd actually not have to be here because I'm already over there. But not seeking here, not being here, you're not going to the next hour. Because then you get to the end of the day, and we talked about the fact that the socialist pressures and expectations, the internal expectations and pressure to get to the end of your day, and you go, oh, what did I achieve today? What did I do today? I've done nothing. It's not as a matter of fact that you haven't had a result, but you look back on it, you actually, well, if I had to slow down here, or I had done this a little bit differently here, then that's cool. There's questions people should ask themselves in terms of being able to be accountable where you are on your continuum in terms of your experiences through, to be able to, not so much score yourself, but in terms of understanding where your mood's at for the different parts of the day, and not waiting for the end of the week and go, oh yeah, I had a good week. We all have okay weeks, right? There's certain experiences that go good, and there's certain ones that are not so good. But how did I behave in those experiences, right? So if I can do that more consistently and understanding how I behave into it, as I said, becoming behaviour focused, not outcome focused, and then it's going to be a lot more positive, hopefully, moving forward.
Mm-hmm. So going back to the continuum, so we kind of got
sidetracked. This is what I do. It's the conversations. We're all here.
Yeah, this is how it always goes. So how low did you get on that continuum, or what was the point that you were the lowest?
What point? I had years of being in a 1, right, that sort of 0 to 2 space, years of it, and just lack of self-worth. But then that I didn't understand who I was, what I was. When I finished footy, for my last year at North Melbourne, I was taking substances to party when I was at North Melbourne in 2005, coke, speed, weed, pills, whatever it was, and that was the life, and that's how we're going about it. And then 2005 finished at North, and then it was just let's go, and finished playing footy. Didn't work for a period of time. Had money, had all the time, blah blah blah, and then just.
Did you feel good about finishing footy, or
Nah, I hated footy. Absolutely hated footy, and I was sort of happy to be out. Hated footy and the experiences and everything that went with it.
So you were like, I'm
totally fell out of love with the best game in the world, which is from something that I was doing since I was 11 years of age to realise that this has now been taken out of my hands again because of my experiences, and I felt a lot of guilt and felt a lot of crap that come with the fact that it was the end of my 3rd club. This is the time when going to 3 clubs wasn't a thing. Now players go 3, 4, 5 clubs, right, and just keep popping around. But 25, and I had nothing to go to. I had nothing. Like I had a high school education, completed my BCE. I didn't have any certificates, no trades, no nothing else, no job to go to. And I was like, I'll just party and I'll worry about it later.
And was it kind of going downhill from then?
Oh,
in terms
it was
of
down.
mood-wise.
Mood-wise, it was down. It was down. So, but I was same thing. I was living in. Then became a personal trainer. So, which is a natural succession of what life was as a post-professional sports person back in the day. Became that.
You were like, I need money, or I need something
money,
to do.
I need a job. I need a life. I need something. And what can I do that's going to be accessible to me? So, was there pressure on you, or that was kind of like what other people like? What are you doing? There's not so much pressures, but you got to live, right? The bill's got to be paid.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't know what else to do. I went and did a sales job. It was like repping for a guy's mate's company at the time. But I was sort of left to my own devices. I didn't know what I was doing. Didn't know how to go about it. But then I was just like, oh, all right, well, I'll rock into work and then I'll just go home at lunchtime and I'll smoke. And that was the world that I was living. So, I didn't do it properly and I didn't go away. I actually applied for the fire brigade. I thought, that's something I could do, surely. And failed the drug test. That was, but they still, put me through to the final interview. But I didn't go in and I said, oh, see you later. Who fails a drug test for going for the fireys or the police, or you know what I mean? Like, who does that?
Do you have shame about it, or are you like, whatever?
Oh, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go. The fact that, as I said, that drug test, I think it was like around the physical component. It was like 7 or 8 stages to get through, and that was like stage 3. And then they immediate, I can tell you. She was like, "Yep, you failed." All right, so I went back.
Did you know you were going to fail?
I thought, I had a feeling that I was going to fail because, it wasn't from...
like the night before?
It wasn't from the night before. But
so you tried to...
Yeah.
Get yourself to a point where you can pass it.
I'll clear myself out for a few days and we'll be fine, hopefully. And I didn't, so... There's been enough in my system to keep me going, right? So, anyway, so I didn't get the fireys, and then I was like, all right, personal trainer will be my thing. And then, I became a sort of physical beast back in the gym, and that was my world. Just trained flat out. I was big, I was ripped, I was, that guy, but I was partying flat out and, smoking speed a lot of days or snorting or whatever it was, and that was just a function of who I was and how I was going about it.
And with the people in that environment, do you think they were struggling as well, or some people were able to manage it and they weren't as bad as you were? Or they weren't feeling as bad on the inside?
It wasn't talked about. And to tell the truth, your experiences when you're in it like that and you're in the midst of it really at that dark level, you don't see what other people's experiences are. So, I now look back on it and there's some people in there that were struggling and but were masking it. The big masking thing that we do, masking it through alcohol or drugs or partying or training or whatever it was, and weren't able to get themselves out. And that's the problem that we've got, is that I went so 31 I was when I'd had my last suicide attempt, and then I got the help. I had the conversation with my wife, got the help that I needed, and then bang, went cold turkey off the alcohol. I'd be lucky to drink 5-10 beers a year now, at worst. But that's not my relation. That's not what I do, right? But I was able to get out.
Yeah.
A lot of people can't get out. And this is the problem that we have, because there's still so people aren't accountable to their actions and they still escape. That's their escape. My escape is different now.
So when did you start feeling suicidal?
Oh, when I was 20.
So the whole time through playing footy, it would come up that you were like, I don't want to be here.
Yeah. But it was not so much, there's a difference between suicidal thoughts and wanting to die. the suicidal thoughts that I was having at those times was the suicidal ideation was the fact that life would be better off without me. If I die here, then life will be done, because I'm not living with the pain that's in here anymore. I don't have to deal with that.
Yeah.
I want to die is because there's no worth. Life's going to be better off without me. I'm going to be better off without me. I can't deal with the pain. I'm actually going to put a plan in place. I'm actually going to put myself into a position to say, okay, that I'm going to do this. Suicidation for me at that time was just the fact that I can't keep living the life that I'm living. Anyway, just die. I'll wake up tomorrow. And that's the thoughts that I was being able to have, which was not positive, not ways to go about it. Everyone's experiences are totally different. But then through that sort of, from when I finished footy, I'd put certain plans in place. There was trees that I'd drive into that I would contemplate, or I had planned to drive into. There was buildings that I'd, or there was weekends where I'd take so much drugs to say, okay, well, this is going to be it. Not consciously putting myself into a position to take enough drugs to do it, but I would take them and then I would still survive. I did that for a long period of time. And then the last time was, I was on a roof and it was just like, let's see what this looks like. And slept for a few days and I was going to jump. Got down off that roof after a few hours and went back in and smoked myself to sleep, and next day I was able to have that conversation.
So you kind of decided, like, I want to get help at this point?
I didn't decide. No, it's a hard one, right? Because your decision becomes from a series of experiences over a period of time, and it wasn't, okay, well, I'm feeling better now. I'm gonna, I want to get help, and then the help's going to work. The conversations with my wife was like, what are you going to do with this? What are we going to do now? What do you want to do? Who are you going to speak to? So, I couldn't speak to my friends about it. Well, I was supposed to be my friends. I couldn't speak to them. It wasn't the thing. I didn't want to go to mum and dad about it because, that's, I didn't want to put them in a position of this conversation. I reached out to my best mate's mum. Actually, she was a nurse, and I had a great relationship with her, and she's had experiences dealing with a lot of this stuff for a period of time, and had a conversation with her, and then she's like, "Well, we've got to put you in to see your doctor." So I did that, and I saw my doctor, and then my psychologist we're going to go see, and then what else are we going to do with that? So got away, disassociated myself with the world that I was in and where I was living, all sort of stuff. My wife and I would moved out into a house and little units, and then we just, okay, well, how are we going to work this going forward? I saw 3 different psychologists before I saw a psychiatrist at the Melbourne clinic, which really, that was a final opportunity of being able to deal with my crap. Deal with the challenges, deal with all the things that were going on in my life, and how am I going to move this moving forward. So we put it all in play. A lot of sort of huge soul-searching time. I started reading a lot of Buddhism books, all these sorts of things. It was people go, "What did you read that for?" Well, that's what I connected to at that time. I was going to the library. I was just going to, It's quite funny, like the fact that I remember it wasn't really audio book time, 10 years ago sort of thing. That's what I wasn't into and understanding. So, but I wanted to get into, I was going to a library and I'd just get all the Buddhism books and I'd just read them, or I'd go borrow them and just go and sit in parks and read all these books for a long period of time. Which, did a lot of journaling at that time. I hugely appreciate and acknowledge what journaling does for a lot of people, without a system, not needing a system to journal, right? Just being able to write what's going on, and I'd sit at cafes or wherever it was for hours on the iPad or with the book and just write everything from my earliest experiences as a kid to where I got to that point on that roof at that time. And what I can remember, how I felt, what I did, what I didn't want to do, what I wanted to say to people. I had it all written down, and that was a hugely sort of therapeutic sort of way of how I went about it. Is that going to work for everybody? Probably, maybe not. That's this. You got to find your way. And that's what worked for me. And walking and being around sort of a positive experience being with my wife was a hugely positive experience that allowed me to process opportunities of life. And I thought, all right, there's more to life than what I'm doing right now. And drugs wasn't in my life, alcohol wasn't in my life, negative relationships weren't in my life anymore. And I thought, okay, well, what are we going to do about it? And I thought, all right, let's start the foundation. Let's see where this takes us. And just riding that roller coaster ever since.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Going back to the feeling suicidal thing, I think that's because I've struggled with those thoughts as well, that it's like the world would just be better off without me. And I think that's this misconception where people are like, oh, suicide is so selfish, or that it's like the person genuinely, you believe that it's like, I am worthless to the world. But it makes me emotional because, as I told you, I lost my brother to suicide. So saying that, I'm like, oh my God, you can't think of that, because I just know like there'll be people like without knowing you very well. It's just like a deep sense that no, like you need to stay alive because so it's this really confusing thing, but I think that's what people don't understand. And even like my dad on the way here this morning, I was talking about these conversations help, for example, this friend who struggles with sometimes feeling like she doesn't want to go on anymore, and he was like, what? But like her, she's got this amazing partner and she's got all this great stuff happening. And I'm like, but this is what happens. Like, because people could say like, oh, but you have your wife, so how could you be thinking about that?
100%. But that's, there's the demons that live internally, that are experiencing internally, that put you into that position, right? So it's being able to talk about it is hugely empowering to the person on the receiving end as well. Like, you're hearing people hearing these types of conversation. It's, there's a reality that comes with the fact that suicide's real, right? People wanting and needing to end their life to get away from the pain that they're going through is real. We're not going to save the world from everybody. So suicide's always going to be a thing that's happening in this world. We're not going to get to a number 0 in terms of how that looks. It's not real, because the way life works is that it is a reality of people's experiences, that the fact that they can't see themselves living anymore in the world that they're experiencing. As sad as that, and it's hugely sad. And having known it and why, and my thoughts and experiences in that time, and being able to talk about it now so openly about it, which people go, how do you talk about it so openly? Because if we don't talk about it so openly, then the fact that we're not going to actually, it's talking about it openly is not going to increase the numbers that, whether it be suicide attempts, suicidation, or actual people die by suicide, is the fact that talking openly is actually going to decrease the numbers. It's not going to bring it to a 0, but it's going to decrease the rate of suicide, because people are more open to the understandings of the conversations that need to be had. So we open it and normalise it and be a part of it, and not normalising to the fact that we should be talking about suicide every single day. That's not what I'm talking about, normalising. I'm talking about normalising the fact that if it's the concept of suicide is being triggered into somebody, that they are feeling open enough and safe enough to be able to talk about it. The experiences and a lot of comments a lot of people go to is that, why would you think that that's your situation? You got all these things. But it's not about the fact that 100%, like even for me, I had opportunities of AFL career, had beautiful family, had social connection, physically able to do anything that I needed to do. I had all these things, and everything was all cool. But the relationships and behaviours that I had, and the outcomes from those behaviours, put me to a position of feeling a lack of self-worth and wanting to think, okay, well, this world's going to be better off without me, because I can't see what the top of the well looks like. So we get ourselves to a point where we're going, okay, well, suicide is the reality, and we can have these types of conversations. People are making those choices for themselves. It's not selfish. It's the fact that they can't live with the pain that's going on in their head and their heart. But a lot of bitterness comes from that. A lot of anger comes from that, from the people that have been left behind from suicide, which is really hard, because you've got no answers to your questions. and you sort of just go around and around and around and around and around, and people take the power from those conversations and those experiences and actually push it moving forward, like you're trying to do earlier, in terms of actually opening these experiences to people and the reality that it is from your experiences, from 12 years ago, but to the fact of, okay, a lot of people will still hide behind it as well. We did a video project a few years ago now called Left Behind. So we had people that have been left behind from suicide. We can find it on YouTube and whatnot, and across all channels, it's it's had over 1 million views talking about it. It's openly talking about people's experiences of how they felt being left behind from someone that suicided. Recently did another one called about our Never Alone project, but the fact of people feeling never alone from their experiences, either themselves being suicidal or someone in their life has died by suicide. And the same messaging keeps coming back, is the fact of just the anger that comes with the why. There's not too many people that can be comfortable with the fact that that's that person's choice, whether you like it or not. And you keep coming back to the fact of, what could I have done differently? I should have done this, I should have done that. And that's just going to hurt you more. The fact of you not having answers to those questions or those moments or those experiences. But as I said, for moving forward, to find the power in the fact of conversation and getting back the connection and the reality that we're in this together. You're not in it by yourself. We're in this together, that hopefully we'll have more positive experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think?
I forgot to ask you if there's a point, because we've been talking for an hour and 10 minutes.
Oh, we're on fire.
Go.
No, you're all good. All good here.
Because it's like, there's
all
so
good.
much more
Lots to talk about.
I could ask you, because we haven't talked much about, your work, what you do now.
It's okay. Yeah. So the foundation. So we love me, love you. So, and the meaning behind the name, as I said, I was going through that sort of soul-searching phase of my life and how I was going about it, and as I said, the Buddhism books were a lot of readings around that and practices coming from that, and about understanding how you actually need to be able to find that internal love before you can actually accept or be a part of the love that's out there, right? So, how
did you get onto the Buddhism books?
No idea. I don't know. I don't know. I was in the library. I was like looking at stuff, self-help or whatever it was, and so let's see what this looks like, right? Meditation, yoga, all those sort of things that I'd like, okay, well, I've experienced this in the past and see what this looks like, and then opened it up and became a thing. Now it's been a roller coaster 10 years, there's no doubt. One's from the general awareness of the sector, mental health sector, 10 years ago to what it is now. In the technology and social media and all these things, and everyone's an expert now in the mental health sector, in delivering programs or whatever it is. There's been royal commissions into the mental health systems in Victoria, the fact that it's broken, all this sort of stuff, but there was a system that's not broken, it was just breaking because it didn't know what the system needed to be, right? You can never foresee the future. So
when you started getting into it, or even when you started getting help, did you have shame around it?
No.
You were just like, this is who I am, and I'm figuring it out. And
the more you do it, the more open people are to those conversations.
And starting the charity, you were like, because I just mean the juxtaposition from AFL, where it's like, especially when you were playing, where it's like that tough culture, were you like, oh, what am I doing entering this new world?
I think more the fact that the more conversations that I was having with people, the more conversations I was getting back of their experiences, or thanks for talking about this. Someone in my family, there's that experience that someone's had a connection to a devastation or devastating experience over a period of time. And the more open it was, the more reality, there's taking away the white jacket syndrome that can come with psychology, which people, prefer to listen to someone with lived experience as opposed to a person that's, doing an amazing job in being a psychologist or psychiatrist or someone that's mental health practitioner or whatever it might be. But our idea of the whole thing when I started the foundation was I don't want people to go through what I did. And if a connection, a conversation, a program, a presentation, a podcast, an event, or whatever it might be, can help that person, one person, not just that one person, and I'm done my job and see you later, help those people find a way to see how they can be better or feel better. Not be better in terms of success of life, but feel better in their emotions and their experiences to move forward, and then that's cool. It's a pretty positive experience, I believe. And I get stopped in shopping malls. I get stopped in actually, going for walks. I get stopped here and there all the time. And people say, I heard you say this. I heard you here. Or, part of you. I've been at your event or whatever it might be, and said, you've changed my life, or thanks, or blah blah blah. And that. From all the experiences that I had from growing up through high school, through to footy, through to post-footy, and some experiences and some behaviours that I put onto people that were inexcusable, and I apologise profusely all the time to the experiences that I put onto other people from what I was going through. Makes me feel a little bit better. It doesn't make me feel the best, but I feel that them making an impact makes me feel a little bit better every single day. But if I can't do it here, then the foundation's not genuine, and it needs to be genuine. We need to have the reality, we need to have that great connection, and now we know what we do well. We have a welfare warrior training program, which is a peer support training conversation program, which is literally what we've been talking about right here, is about that ability to, so we've acknowledged the situations or experiences that people are having in people, but it's how do we start, manage, and exit a conversation. That's the program. And it's being able to do that in a way that makes it accessible for people to experience those moments and then understand what then support does. What does support look like? So when you have those moments and those people go panic stage, that sort of stuff. How am I going to fix you? It's not about fixing. It's about starting, managing, exit conversation. How do I get that support for you, so you can actually go do this? That's our program. We talk about, we do journey presentations. We've got an online platform called the Never Alone Community, which is how-to guides from a whole range of different topics and all that sort of stuff, but it's creating conversations in there. And then we do work with a partner of ours that offers free counselling programs. So, for a system that's broken in this country, being able to offer free counselling to people, no matter what their situation is or what experience or where they're at in the continuum, makes us feel the fact that we're actually making a huge difference in this world.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's life. That's what we do, and we love it. So, we're trademark, registered trademark around Never Alone. All our programs, all our events, foundational. We're looking at a relaunch of the foundation in terms of being not called Love Me, Love You anymore, but the Never Alone Foundation. Really sort of bringing it back to that positive messaging, the fact that we're all in this together, which can be huge.
And what would your advice be to someone who is at the point that you got to in 2011?
Yeah.
And they feel like, I'm so deep in this, like how can I get from here to where you are now?
First of all, it's not about getting to where someone partly, not saying anything wrong, but getting to somewhere else, where someone else is, sort of thing, or where someone else could be. But the fact of, let's pull this back. I think that the biggest part of this, in terms of something that I would say to people, is the fact that your worth is here. Right, so your worth is here. Your worth is wild. Your worth is here. You have your people, but you love you. We need to bring you back. Let's make this happen. Let's get down. Let's slow down our process. Let's write down. I think this writing down thing is a huge one for me. Let's write down where we are. What am I experiencing? What am I feeling? And then at the end of it, look at it and go, okay, what do I want to do with it? So, and for a lot of people, you're like, oh, well, that's not going to help me. I'm not trying to fix you in anything that's going to be said here, but the fact is that you have your worth. And to the people in this world, in your world, not the world, because in the whole world you're a blip. But you have your own world. And in that, you have a huge worth. And people need you need you to be part of it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's bring it back.
Yeah, I guess, sorry, that's that it's like looking at you now, it's like, but you were there. Someone might be like, but how does that happen? But I guess, that's the thing, you don't look at that's been like a 10-year journey.
Yeah, 100%. And never in my world that I would have thought that I would still be doing this in 10 years. You know what I mean? Like, so from that moment where we started the foundation to the fact that we're doing now and the programs that we're able to offer and the support we're able to offer, it's not what I pictured it to be. What did
you think it would be?
I don't know.
You were just like, okay,
let's just do this.
Let's give it a crack.
Let's give it a crack and see what happens. Because it was sort of so much unknown, and the world is unknown. Like everything is unknown tomorrow, right? You can put all the plans in place, but the outcomes are unknown. So let's look at what that looks like. So, but let's understand that life's more about the behaviours than the outcomes, because the outcomes will take care of themselves as much as you possibly can if you put the right behaviours in place.
Mm. And I think that's the thing with writing it down. Like when you are stuck in that place, you're like, well, how would that help me? But it's like, well, what you're doing now isn't helping. Yeah. So it's like, you've got to try something. And writing, it's hard to explain it, but that helps me so much. And it's, I guess what we were talking about before, getting you in that moment to say, okay, do something different. Like get a piece of paper out, write this stuff down.
And there's the thing, am I being the person that I want to be right now? Yeah. This is a hard question to ask yourself. And then there's behaviours or things that I'm doing, is it helpful or harmful? And it's as simple as we need to slow that down and make that, be able to be honest with that, right? I said, write that down. You can scrunch it up and put it in the bin, or you can put it, light it up or flame it up, whatever you want to do. Write down your experiences, because you keep those experiences and those thoughts and those questions inside your head internally. It becomes a rat race, and then you become dizzy and then become overwhelmed with the experience. Let's bring it back, slow it down, get it out.
And on your road to recovery, I guess, were there moments where you attempted to slip back, or did you ever slip back, or it was kind of...
No. I talked about it before, right? This inspiration that, people put out, this inspiration, all this sort of stuff. You find your own motivation in life, right? So whatever that purpose, what's your reason why? And you keep attaching yourself to your reason why, and you're affirming yourself all the time what your reason why is and where you want to go. Then you find your motivation no matter what the challenges are, no matter where the life, whatever outcomes come your way, is that you find your motivation to keep moving forward. There's to say that I don't think about drugs and alcohol would be a lie. I think about it. I don't think that I need to do it, or I want to do it, or I'm scared of the fact that of what that world would look like if I opened it up. I'm hugely fearful, but I motivate myself, as I said, every single day to be able to say, what is it, the thing that I need to do to make myself that little bit better? So I'm not breaking as much. We're always breaking. From the day we're born, we're actually preparing to die, right? That's how it works. But if I can actually better manage my system so I'm not breaking as much, and I'm actually putting myself into an empowering position moving forward, then let's go. Life is a battle, life is a struggle, but there's so many opportunities of love and care and connection, and they're all the things that what life is all about. Because when we talk about mental health as a concept, I talk about this a lot, is the fact that it's measured between the energy between multiple people. If I'm actually investing in here and the relationships and the experience that I have with my people that are important to me, the better off I'm going to be, because then when I'm by myself, I still feel that support and love and care that's around me. When I invested in that, then it becomes lonely. It becomes a really sort of sad place for me. And it's not to do it through thousands of people all over the world to be able to find that connection. I have my crew, I have my family, and that's the most important people into my life, and I make sure I invest in them. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Can I ask you the last
question?
Three quick ones?
Quick one.
I guess we've already touched on this, but how do you stay grounded? day to day?
How?
Do you stay grounded? Like,
How do I
what's
stay
the
grounded?
most important
I think
practice?
the biggest practice for me is spending time with my kids and my wife. That's how I stay grounded. The reason why I'm still living is because of my wife. The reason why I want to create an impact in opportunities of life through the foundation and other opportunities that we're about to launch into this year is the legacy of my kids. And, you know, I see the opportunities of opening up a world with them, not to them, opening up a world with them is what keeps me grounded every day.
Which book has had the biggest influence on you?
I read a book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Suzanne Jeffries, I think her name is. And I'm not a reader at all, but it was one of those books that I was reading at the time, and I've done it a number of times and experiences. That's probably had a big impact on me. And as I said, there was a Buddhism book, and I can't even remember the name of it, and it was like literally not even 100 pages, and that opened me up so much.
Damn, I want to know what it is.
Yeah, I couldn't remember what I was, but I read a whole range. It would have been 15 Buddhism books, different types of books that I would have read at that time, but there was this one that was about 100 pages, I remember. It was my first book that I opened up to it, and I was like, oh, let's go more. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, final question. What 3 words describe the best version of you?
Best version of me? Strong, vulnerable, caring.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Wait, how can people find your work?
Yeah, it's the same. It's all over social media. Website at lovemelove.org.au. As I said, we're going through a process at the moment to relaunch into the Never Alone Foundation. So, but all the social media, which is obviously I talked about before, being the devil for some, you use the right way. It's a great place of connection and can be the angel for a lot of people. So,
amazing.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me. Good conversation.